Buckle up, guys, this is going to be a wild ride. In today's video, we're going to cover the lighter side of aviation, exploring 5 groundbreaking ultralights that barely had enough power to lift themselves off the ground. Also, learn about the event that nearly wiped out the ultralight movement in the 1980s. Let's go! When ultralights first made their appearance in the early 1970s, they were severely underpowered, with engines ranging from 10 to 15 horsepower. So one company in Canada had a rather creative solution to this underpowered problem. The Ultraflight Lazair ran on not one but 2 chainsaw engines, each with a whopping 5 horsepower each. In spite of its pitiful choice of engines, the Lazair actually managed to fly quite well. So what was the secret? Lightweight construction and extra long wings, making it a sort of a cross between a sailplane and an ultralight. The Lazair was extremely efficient. Even today there's nothing quite like the Lazair. It wasn't just unique, it was a pioneer among ultralights. The first twin-engine ultralight, the first ultralight with winglets, the first with an inverted V-tail. It was also the first with full 3-axis controls, something we take for granted with airplanes, but unheard of on ultralights. Early models had wings covered in translucent mylar plastic film, giving them an invisible look, like Wonder Woman's jet, but just a little slower. Even its landing gear was unique, with a total of 5 wheels. Initially, the first Lazair sold included the tiny chainsaw engines to keep costs low, but soon pilots realized they needed a little bit more power. So Ultraflight upgraded the Lazair to Rotax engines with a whopping 9.5 horsepower each. But Ultraflight found themselves with a little problem. They had already stocked up on a bunch of tiny propellers for the chainsaw engines. They say,
"When life hands you lemons,
make lemonade."
And when you have a bunch of leftover propellers, you glue them together and make new ones. The Lazair is probably the only aircraft ever designed to use a double propeller. Even with its 2 engines, the Lazair qualified as a Part 103 ultralight in the US, meaning you didn't need a pilot's license to take it for a spin. In 1979, the Lazair was sold as a kit and evolved over the years. It got more powerful engines, cockpit fairings, and even a 2-seat version. Some daring owners slapped on floats, and modern Lazairs have went with electric power. One California police department got in on the action, using a Lazair for surveillance during the 1984 Olympics, because nothing screams cutting edge more than a noisy ultralight with 2 engines. The Lazair also made its way to Hollywood. A 2-seat Lazair 2 made a star appearance in the classic 1980s comedy, The Gods Must Be Crazy Part 2.
Shut up, woman! I told you I can't fly!
Hundreds of Lazairs were built, and many are still flying today, especially in Canada, where they first took to the skies. The Lazair wasn't just any ultralight, it was unlike any experimental on the market, and proving you didn't need a lot of power to have a lot of fun. Very few pilots get the chance to fly the legendary U-2 spy plane. Known as one of the hardest planes to fly, it's a sort of aircraft that makes its pilot work hard to fly well, especially on landing. But there's good news. Good news is you can fly your own U-2, sort of. Meet the Mitchell U-2. The Mitchell U-2 was the brainchild of Don Mitchell, a brilliant engineer who had already earned his wings working on the Northrop flying wing. In the 1970s, Mitchell designed the B-10, a rigid wing hang glider that broke many records in its category. This was around the time ultralights were becoming popular. So he bolted on a tiny 2-stroke engine, added landing gear, and thus inventing the first trike. Not stopping there, Mitchell took the B-10 and turned it into something even cooler. A sleek flying wing with a bubble canopy, a compact cockpit, and an engine mounted in the back. This new design was named the U-2, just like the band from Ireland. Oh yeah, and the spy plane too. Timing was great for the U-2. It was classified as an ultralight aircraft as soon as the FAA started making rules for ultralights. Weighing in at just 240 pounds, it didn't require a pilot's license to fly. Powered by engines ranging from 20 to 40 horsepower, the U-2 had a wingspan that gave it an impressive glide ratio. Its wingtip rudders doubled as brakes, which was handy in slowing it down. And here's a fun bit of trivia. The Mitchell U-2 holds the world altitude record for aircraft under 600 pounds, soaring to over 26,000 feet. No word on how long that took to get up there. Its wings folded up for easy storage or for strapping to a trailer, making it almost as portable as a bicycle. But flying the U-2 wasn't exactly hop in and go. Like any flying wing, it had a short pitch moment and was incredibly sensitive to balance. Mess up the center of gravity and your flight could get pretty exciting. Even the engine placement required some math. The motor was mounted on a pylon that had to be extended or retracted based on the pilot's weight. So, if you hit the buffet a little too hard, you better have a wrench handy. Despite its quirks, over 1,000 U-2 kits were sold, though very few were completed. Today, only a handful are still flying, and just like the spy plane, the Mitchell U-2 seems to demand a special kind of pilot. You can check one out at the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum, where a Mitchell U-2 hangs from the ceiling. Many folks getting into the world of remote-controlled airplanes, you may have started out with simple balsa wood models. You know, the kind where you wind up a rubber band, launch it into the air, and hope for the best. If you ever flew one of these, have you ever wondered about building a full-size version? One you could actually fit in? Well, it turns out you can. Meet the wood Skypup. Your best shot at piloting a life-size balsa wood airplane. Sorry, it doesn't come with a giant rubber band. The Skypup is the brainchild of a Cessna engineer who decided his day job wasn't cutting the mustard. So he developed the Skypup as a side project, like a hobby. His mission? Create an airplane that could be built for under $1,000. The result? Something that looks just like a kit you'd buy at a hobby store, just a little bigger. Crafted from Douglas fir and styrofoam, the Skypup is as lightweight as it is quirky. It's powered by a small two-stroke, with anywhere between 20 to 30 horsepower. And you might be thinking, can a full-size human actually fly this thing? Not only can they fly, but many pilots swear it's one of the easiest and most stable planes they've ever flown. It's also surprisingly capable. Unlike many ultralights from the 80s, the Skypup boasted a respectable 12-to-1 glide ratio. In other words, if the engine quits, it turns into a glider. And for something that looks like it belongs in the toy section, it had a robust frame, with a load factor up to 6 Gs. Similar to the balsa wood models that inspired it, the Skypup had no ailerons and therefore only 2-axis controls. This meant it could only be flown in very light winds, as it did not handle crosswind landings very well. But most ultralight pilots already avoid breezy days, so no harm, no foul. It's been estimated around 300 Skypups were built. Would you take one for a spin? Wingding, wingding, wingding. Don't you just love saying it? And no, Wingding is not some barbecue chicken festival. It's the name of one of the smallest biplanes ever built, a quirky little machine that helped kick off the ultralight aviation craze of the 1980s. Back in the early 1970s, the Wingding was designed with one goal, to be as light as humanly possible while still carrying a human. It was built using materials that were cheap and easy to obtain, such as plywood, cardboard, and foam. Incredibly, it tipped the scales at only 122 pounds. No brakes on this plane, so you had to stomp on the tires to stop the plane. Just like Fred Flintstone. The Wingding was powered by a 12-horsepower go-kart engine. That's right, a go-kart engine. Mind you, go-kart engines were never designed for long-distance flying, so pilots were encouraged to keep their flights well within the reach of an airport, or a cow pasture, whichever was closer. On paper, the Wingding was supposed to fly at 40 miles per hour, and climb at 200 feet per minute. But with only 12 horsepower, most pilots found they couldn't really climb out of ground effect, which was just as well, as it would run out of gas in 15 minutes. Pro tip, don't fly this thing after Thanksgiving. By the late 1970s, Hovey had sold thousands of Wingdings plans, but it's unknown how many actually flew. Probably not that many. Fast forward to 2021, a group of Wingding fans from the Czech Republic decided the tiny biplane deserved a complete makeover, taking it to heights never imagined by its designer. Gone are the craft paper tails and wheels with no brakes. Renamed the Dingo, it now has a sleek metal fuselage and nearly 3 times the horsepower of the original. It can now fly farther, higher, and without the fear of crash landing into a cow pasture. Complete dingo kits are being sold for around $15,000. The legacy of one of aviation's quirkiest designs lives on. Let's shift gears from the primitive world of early ultralights and explore a machine which stood at the opposite end of the spectrum, the Diehl XTC. Though it was pronounced as ecstasy, the letters meant cross-terrain vehicle, and this little machine meant big business. Check out the stats. First legal ultralight sold with pre-molded kit parts. First canard amphibian. It featured twin tails that looked like something Tom Cruise might have flown in Top Gun. Retractable landing gear. And last but not least, foldable wings for storage. Pretty rad, huh? But wait, there's more. The XTC wasn't just cool to look at. Wait till you see it perform. Its fuselage handled 4 positive and 4 negative Gs, boasted a glide ratio of 14:1, and cruised at 60 miles per hour. All powered by just 25 horsepower, which is what you'll find on small motorcycles. For those who felt the need for more speed, or found 25 horsepower lacking in lifting power, Diehl offered the Rotax 447 with an increase to 45 horsepower. Now, you had an ultralight on steroids. One builder even managed to crank it up to nearly 100 miles per hour. The XTC wasn't just a hit, it was the hit of Oshkosh 1982. 60 kits flew off the shelves, with more orders piling up faster than Diehl could crank them out. These kits were sold worldwide. Some made their way to the Philippines for patrol duty, while an Australian adventurer turned his XTC into a flying documentary platform, slapping on cameras and capturing incredible barrier reef footage, all before hauling it back onto his boat, James Bond style. So why did this amazing plane disappear in thin air? In 1983, ABC unleashed a report with the catchy title, Ultralights, Flying or Dying. The smear campaign by ABC painted ultralights as death traps, scaring off potential buyers and wiping many of the pioneering ultralight builders from the 1980s. Orders for the XTC all but disappeared, and Diehl, left with no customers, shifted gears to component manufacturing. As to the poor XTC, gone, but not forgotten. Well, mostly forgotten. Want to see this aviation unicorn in the flesh? The prototypes can be spotted at the Tulsa Air and Space Museum, a quiet reminder of what could have been. Rest in peace, little plane. You deserved better. I hope you enjoyed learning about these tiny but amazing machines. And if you want to see more unusual aircraft, be sure to subscribe to the channel. There's plenty more hidden gems waiting to be discovered. See you next time.